Nice rustic background. You're wearing your logo. Very cool. You can have one. Okay, we're gonna just go and see Mr. We're gonna get going. Thank everybody for being here. Who's a first timer here at 1 Million Cups? Oh, that's great. We have a bunch of new people. Thank you for coming. Yeah, how did you hear about us?
Startup Tech.
Oh, good. Okay. So friends, different online things. Great. Okay. So we have two presenters today. So the format, if you're new, we always have two presenters every week. They do a 6-minute presentation or pitch. We then do Q&A, and also they can ask. We ask them what can the community do for you? What do you need from the community? So it could be information, contacts, whatever we can help each other out with. So what I want to start off with before we get to our presenters is a big thank you to our sponsors. Colorado Lending Source has been one of our main sponsors, and they've been with us our entire lifespan, which will be a year. We're going to actually have our 1-year birthday on the 25th. So we're going to...
Very special program.
Yeah, so we're going to... One of our first presenters was Flower Gal, who does cupcakes. So we might look into having cupcakes for breakfast with our coffee. We have special presenters, so Britt and Karen, who are also on the leadership here, are going to be doing presentations. We made them wait a whole year because they're really not supposed to present if you're a leader, but everyone keeps going, what do you guys do? So we're going to let them present, and I'm Sam, by the way. Hi.
Hi.
So Adam's here from Colorado Lending Source. Do you have any announcements or anything going on that you want us to know about?
Sure. My name's Adam.
Stand up.
Colorado Lending Source. And, we are a nonprofit economic development company here in Denver. Our mission is to foster the economic growth of small businesses in Colorado. And we do that basically two ways. First, through access to capital for small businesses that can't get bank loans. And we're actually the largest small business administration lender in the state. So we help a lot of businesses that way. And we also do entrepreneurship education. We teach a class called the Ice House program, which is based on research out of the Kauffman Foundation. Basically, entrepreneurs have a worldview, and they look at the world through a very specific way. And the Kauffman Foundation kind of distilled that down, and we help people implement that worldview in their lives. So if you have questions about how to get a small business loan, or are interested in learning about how to think like an entrepreneur, come see me at the break. Thank you.
When's your next class going to be?
Next classes will start in September, both here in Denver and down in Colorado Springs.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
Our other sponsors are Galvanize, who's been great the whole time. We have every single meeting here. And also Built in Colorado has been a nice sponsor for us to making sure that we promote the event and let people know about what we have going on. So no further ado, we're going to start off with Ryan's here with your local connection.
All right. Good morning, you guys. Thanks for coming out today. I appreciate it. Before we get going, I just want to give a little quick background on myself. It kind of lends itself to how my business got launched. But I'm a Colorado native, but I'm also a very wayward, poor Colorado native. I've spent about 19 years out of the state. But I'm back now, and that's what's important. So I went to school at the School of Mines, got an undergrad in mechanical engineering, and jumped right into the Air Force and spent 6 years in the military doing contract acquisition and contract sourcing all over the world. Kind of got my first professional experience there, but I've had some great experiences and had the opportunity to go back to grad school while I was there and got studied industrial operations and got some exposure to some continuous improvement tools, Lean, Six Sigma, Toyota production system. And when I kind of went back to the Air Force, I realized they had no interest whatsoever in efficiency. And I was tired of spending my life on the other end of the world for my wife, so I decided that I would jump into the private sector. I've been working in the manufacturing sector the last several years, which kind of led me to where I am now. So normally, if I had more time, I would go through, I would go through a little exercise, and I'd ask you to take these countries for manufacturing locations, and put them on a spectrum from low cost to manufacture to high cost to manufacture. We don't have time, so I'm just going to jump straight to the results. And I think what you might see is going to be a little shocking to you. I don't know if you can see way in the back, but if you look over on the left, now this is a measure of cost trajectory, largely based on wages, productivity capabilities, utility costs, and then currency and exchange rates. What it doesn't factor in is location factors. But you look over on the left, the countries that are performing rather poor are kind of those Goldman Sachs BRIC countries, the ones we typically think of as low-cost to manufacture countries. When you look over on the right, the countries that are performing very well, it's kind of interesting, the United States, Mexico. And when I give this presentation now, I get about half head nods in the room. If I had given this 9 months ago, everybody would have been shaking their head at me. And I think 6 to 9 months from now, I'll get 80 to 90% head nods as this becomes more apparent in the market. There's a lot of major publications that are writing about this right now. But just to kind of give you a background on what's happening economically, this is a study that was done by the Boston Consulting Group. There's another one that was done by Deloitte. I think this one's a little more comprehensive, but it really, just like I said, exposes what's happening. So, we all hear about the rising middle class in Asia. And what that equates to in terms of manufacturing costs is there's significant wage increases in China, 19% per year for the past 5 years. So that's significant. I mean, if we had 19% wage inflation here, we would all be making a lot more than we are currently. But that's a significant quantity, and over the course of, if we amortize it over like 6 years, that's like 300% growth, which is a huge cost increase. And the rest of Asia seemed pretty similar, not quite to that extent, but similar wage growth. Simultaneously, there's been this manufacturing efficiency and technical renaissance that's been taking place in North America, particularly in 2 regions. One is the Midwest, and the other is along the border region with Mexico, making those fantastic opportunities for low-cost manufacturing locations. Additionally, when you manufacture close to your markets, not just within North America, we can talk other continents as well, but you're usually within free trade zones, which is another beneficial factor that really impacts manufacturing costs. When we look at the nation as a whole over the last 3 to 5 years, we've seen imports actually flatline, whereas exports have grown 3 to 5% per year. So we've seen, we're seeing some trends, and there's still that massive trade deficit, but we're seeing a change of trajectory here. So, what my company does is I work with manufacturing companies and product-based startups to understand the total cost of their sourcing and manufacturing activities, and then when it makes sense financially, to make moves closer to their production markets. So, manufacturing as close to your markets basically as possible. So when I said, if you have a market in Asia, it makes sense to manufacture in Asia, but if your market is North America, it makes 100% sense to manufacture in North America, with a few caveats, and we can discuss those offline. So what I'm really trying to do with my clients is help them, there's opportunities here in North America, and now is the time to really take advantage of a number of those opportunities, because a lot of people are still operating on this old paradigm that there's greater cost alternatives in Asia. In fact, I have a gentleman that I've been bugging for 3 or 4 months now who's got a product that he's just taking to market, and he's going back to an old supplier in China because he's buddies with this guy, and I'm like, look, just sit down and spend 5 minutes with me, and let's run the numbers on this. But there's an opportunity now, and I certainly don't want people to miss that opportunity. Dealing with overseas quality and delivery issues is huge as well. When I was an industry practitioner, I spent so many nights at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning trying to resolve an issue with a supplier in China. And it's not a crack on their ability to produce quality parts, but there's a cultural barrier, a significant time difference, and I don't really speak Cantonese or Mandarin. I speak a little bit of Spanish, enough to survive pretty poorly, but just those barriers become significant when you're trying to resolve an issue, especially on a quality or delivery issue. The other delivery issue, if you get the wrong part in, suddenly you're expediting freight over from overseas, which becomes significant. To ship a 1 cubic foot box that weighs, say, 10, 12 pounds, you're probably talking $150, whereas that same box in a container is $3 to $4. So significant issues there. Warehouse space, and lastly, inventory ownership cost is huge, and I'll talk about that in just a sec. So why is this important? Inventories is a big piece of this. $1 worth of inventory is $1 of capital cost that you own on your books. To make up that same dollar on the revenue side, say you have a 10% sales margin, you would have to sell $10 worth of goods to make up that $1 that you did simply by taking $1 worth of inventory out of your stock. It's especially important when we talk about startups and the concept of, if you're using the lean methodology to launch a business where you make a minimum viable product and you're suddenly changing your product. If if you have, say you order 100 widgets to assemble your part or assemble your product, and you made 15 and you realize you need to do a pivot, now you have 85 obsolete parts. So this inventory piece becomes, it's relevant for big business. It's even more relevant, especially on a startup set. And then there's also some significant operational cost savings in freight and tariff avoidance and things like that. In fact, one of the methodologies, in fact, the best methodology to address this is using a total cost of ownership methodology, where you take and you figure out, like most companies know what they spend on freight, they know what they spend on tariffs, and they know what they spend on regulatory compliance, but they know those in big buckets on their balance sheet or their P&L. They don't understand how that impacts one single part. So at $5 part that you purchased in China, by the time it hits your dock door in the United States, might be an $8 to $10 part. And so you need to use this methodology. It's just a very simple, proportion breakdown to understand how much that part costs. And then using that to look at apples-to-apples alternatives here. There's still incidental costs to sourcing in Mexico, or sourcing in Ohio, or sourcing in Lafayette, Colorado. But making an apples-to-apples comparison allows you to make a smart business decision. So my customer base is kind of threefold. One is the product-based startup. The startup that's got some level of sales coming in. They're making these parts in their garage or in a small mom-and-pop shop, but they want to grow to an enterprise scale. It's a very innovative product, and they're ready to grow. So I can help them get to that point where they're making the right decisions on the sourcing side and making the right manufacturing decisions. The other customer base is a company that has a presence in Colorado, like a headquarters presence where you've got a sales office and an R&D office and all these support type functions, but the actual manufacturing is taking place overseas. And then the last profile of customers, companies that actually have a manufacturing presence here, but they may be sourcing overseas, and there may be some opportunities for them to save on their supply chain. I don't really have a direct focus area, but I largely, I say, if I had to define that a little bit, I would say I work in consumer goods and light industrial products. Nothing, it's a pretty broad paintbrush of items because the methodology really applies to any manufacturing process. And I've kind of stepped out of that even. I've talked to some folks in textiles and other things where my background is largely consumer goods and light industrial, but the same principles easily applied. So again, with the small startups, I work with on the scaling of their products. So really simple process. I mean, outwardly simple. The mechanics are quite challenging, but we identify qualified sources for suppliers, for contract manufacturers. We do some vetting and evaluation, and there's some tools that we use to do that. We look at the alternatives, and we make that apples-to-apples comparison with that total cost of ownership calculation, which is just one component of many on a decision matrix. And then we manage the transition, and that's painful. That's the challenging part. It sounds simple on the outset, but a little bit frustrating from time to time. And the other thing that I do, again, my bread and butter is working with local assuring, or there's tons of different politically charged buzzwords for moving close to markets, but that's the focus area. But I also work with clients on logistics optimization and even some packaging optimization to really reduce operational costs. And there's also, when we talk about that triple bottom line, there's also environmental impacts and benefits to this as well. So one of the things that I do, because a lot of my customer base is startups, is I have a unique billing schedule. I can be a traditional consultant and bill for hours. I can scope out a whole project and say, I've got 100 hours on this and bill at a discounted hourly rate. The last thing that I do is sometimes I'll take a portion of cost savings or a portion of the margins that I'm able to provide my clients, because they don't have to pay me up front other than a small deposit. I can allow them to that cash flow to invest in the capital expenditures that they need. And then when they're making money, they can come back and pay me on a recurring basis. And what we'll do is we'll set up a validation process so that 6 months down the road, we'll come back and we'll say, did we achieve the savings that we forecasted? If yes, I get my portion of that. 12 months, 18 months, and then everything after that they keep on their own. So here's my ask. With any business, I love referrals, network connections, leads, anything along those lines. I kind of gave you a sense for my customer base. Other speaking opportunities, I said, this, right now I get about half head nods in the room. I want people to start talking about this, and they are. People more and more are talking about this concept of nearshoring or local shoring or whatever you want to call it. But there's still a lot of people that are like, they still get the low factor. So the more you guys, just talk about it with your friends, the more it adds relevance and gives weight to what I'm saying. And then lastly, been struggling with Google Webmaster Tools lately, so if anyone's great at that, love a few minutes of your time. So here's my contact information. If you'd like to chat, ask questions, we'll have a quick session here, but I'm happy to talk after the presentation or after one day comes this morning. So thank you again for coming this morning, and thank you for your time.
Questions, Karen? I always do. So I'm interested, what is one of the most interesting projects you've worked on? That's kind of an example for us to understand how you go through your process.
So right now, I actually have a lot of plastics customers. They're not that sexy. There's one that I'd like to share. I just don't know if he's eager to put it out. It's an agricultural product. It's pretty cool, actually. I think he's going to do some significant changes to the market. One of the most. I'm spending a lot of time at different networking events, and especially on the startup side, I see all kinds of cool, innovative products. This guy's got something that's.
So what are the steps you go through helping it?
So for him, he's launching his product. So for him, we're looking at suppliers for his component parts. We're costing out alternatives between him owning his wholly owned manufacturing process versus finding a contract manufacturer and then launching that, which is again, there's all kinds of vetting tools. On the product side, there's precision or production part approval process techniques and failure mode effects analysis. So there's all these different tools that we'll go through together. But a lot of it's just communicating with those suppliers and making sure that we're vetting those and making sure that they're appropriate.
So working with startups, you must get emotionally involved.
A little bit. I try to abstain.
Babies, they're so cute.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun because they're passionate. People are very passionate. And I don't, I've approached large multinational companies, and they all, I go and sit in front of their, vice president of supply, and they all nod their head and say, yeah, this is awesome. I just can't hire you because they've got a whole staff of supply chain folks. But a lot of the family companies, same thing. They're excited about it. They're eager to go forward with this. Yes, there is some emotional investment.
I was just curious as to what extent your understanding is of the advent of 3D printing in manufacturing and how that may really sort of eclipse a lot of other things that are going on.
So I've had this conversation probably a dozen times in the last couple of months. 3D printing is an awesome technology, particularly for fabrication and for prototyping. It's not a production speed technology.
Right.
And I don't think that it'll ever be.
How far out do you see that?
Everybody asks the question. I don't believe that it will be. I can plastic injection mold apart in 2 seconds. I can, you're never going to create 3D models as quickly. Like I said, it's a great technology for disbursement. If you're prototyping, if you're doing small production runs. And I heard this thing on NPR a while ago about how the human brain can only conceptualize numbers up to 7. I don't think we have a concept for producing in the millions and how that equates to time. And it's just, but yeah, I just don't think it's quick enough. And I think it's, I've got, in fact, I have a client right now who's using a laser cutter for a lot of his fabrication. Again, great technology. It's in the same vein as a 3D printer. He and I both know that it's not fast enough. So that's, like I said, I think it's cool, it's sexy, it's neat, but I don't think it'll ever be a production capable technology. But it's great for, sorry.
Was that Rushdie?
Yeah.
Because he said that he was having trouble keeping up.
Yep.
You touched on this briefly, but it occurs to me that what you do seems like it would reduce carbon footprint by a great deal. Do you provide calculations to your clients in terms of the carbon savings? And is that something that you incorporate into your pitch when you're trying to obtain clients, or is that something you kind of leave on the sideline?
So I tack it on as an incidental. I don't go through and do the carbon reduction calculation necessarily. It's beneficial, but for most of these companies, and I don't mean to diminish the benefit because it is significant. There's so much effort going into just getting their product off the ground that we don't go through the calculation steps. If there was a regulatory issue, they said, what do they say? Like 85% of new innovation has to do with responding to regulation. I think that might drive some of that. Right now, we just take it away as a feel good. Yeah, we did some good stuff. We don't go through the process of calculating, although that may come down the road sometime in the future.
Right now, I'm curious, you kind of mentioned for startups and people that are trying to move from a garage to an enterprise level. What about a customer that maybe have something already in place? Do you have anything that you go and pitch as a benefit to somebody taking you on midstream or?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of people that I'm marketing to are established, smaller manufacturing companies in that front range. I've tried to keep the front range as my target market. But yeah. Yes. So anywhere from, infant stage. I try not to take on a project too early. I took one on recently that was probably a little young, but I want to see existing sales, because when we go to our suppliers, we're going to need some sort of sales formula that says this is what we project, because they're going to have to pay based on volumes and quantities. So, but yes, anywhere from that very early stage to I've been around for 20 years and I just want to improve my margins or try to compete.
So are you putting together some sorts of analysis and things that are?
That's exactly, yeah. I mean, that's essentially my product. Yeah, but I don't work. So I'm all back-end stuff. So I don't work on the sales and marketing side. We'll talk sales and marketing strategy. We'll talk distribution channels. We'll talk that, because it's important. So that information has to be extracted into the back-end. So when we're bidding for, when I write my request for proposals to these suppliers and contractors, we say we're projecting X number of volume, plus or minus X%. We have this sales history to prove that. We have these distribution channels that are opening up that committed to this number of sales. So that's as far into the sales and marketing side that I typically go.
So if somebody had a current situation where maybe something was being disrupted in their supply chain, you can go in and help.
Absolutely. No, that's an ideal client. We can definitely. And there's, again, in 6 minutes I can't talk about all the tools, but you're getting into Goldrat's theory of constraints, and there's all kinds of cool stuff that you can do there. There's tons of tools, and reaching up into your supply chain into multiple tiers and understanding your reliability, statistical analysis, boring stuff. So, but important.
So you're obviously working globally, but what one or two countries is the bulk of your work being done?
So most of my clients are here, but we're looking at manufacturing options here in northern Colorado. I mean, first and foremost in northern Colorado, if we can do that. If we can make the numbers work. If not here, we'll look usually Mexico next.
Okay, so and that's where most of your experience is?
Yes. I spent a ton of time.
Mexico and here. Okay.
Yeah. And I spent, I watched Mexico change over the last 3 to 5 years. When I first started going down there, it was terrifying. I told you I was in the military, way more scary than Iraq. Like it was.
Yeah.
I
just came from there.
Yeah. So it's changed significantly over the past 10 years. We've seen rises up through 2011 crime. 2013 we actually saw a slight decrease, and if you take out Mexico City, which really had an increase in crime, the border states were actually a lot safer. And I watched, there's been a lot of deployment of Mexican military to the border region to displace the local police, which were drug lords wearing police uniforms.
Right.
And so, the first couple times I went down there, it was scary. The last time I was down there, we went out to lunch. It was no big deal. So definitely changes on the horizon. In addition to, every major U.S. player has a presence there now. I mean, it's crazy. And I watch cranes and construction and office parks. It's incredible.
Do you think that's the country with the most opportunity now?
Absolutely.
That's the place to be and watch. That's the country to ask about manufacturing.
Yeah, and I can't, there's still low-cost alternatives in Asia. In the region we call rest of Asia, not Korea, not Japan, not China, but not Singapore, but rest of Asia. But you're chasing a moving target at that point because of the location factors. What's going to be the next low-cost country? And the cost to transition suppliers is painful. It's significant. And so there is a return on investment here that you need to, even if Mexico sees wage increases, the logistics and other benefits are so much more so. And in terms of technical prowess, incredible. Really, really smart and technically savvy companies that are operating there.
Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions? Awesome. Thank you again. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, because you have done a lot of business in Mexico, have you experienced any or heard of any crime situations, like any CEOs being kidnapped or?
No, I was pretty fortunate. I had a really, self-aware driver that kind of took care of me. So I think he told me to stand here, don't look that direction, that type of stuff. So I was always in a pretty good situation. But I hear anecdotal stories all the time. But if you look at crime statistics, I wrote a blog entry on this recently. if you look at crime statistics, there's a subtle decrease in the last 2-3 years. And they're actually looking at making a nationalized police force. The problem is you've got these local police officers, these local yokels that grew up in the towns, and so they're embedded with the local politics. The military was a good thing because you brought folks up from southern Mexico that had no personal interest in it. And it's a professional military. They do a fantastic job. Yeah, so, but yes, it's still scary.
So what are your considerations for staying here in Colorado aside from the obvious, just you working here, but what are your other considerations for working here in Colorado and companies that are located here?
So me personally are the companies that are established here. Why did I come here?
Why is your business model focused on working with companies located?
Because I live here in Colorado. It's awesome.
Aside from that,
Colorado has a booming tech sector. Manufacturing is a growing sector in Colorado. One of my slides I did in the beginning trying to scream through everything. Colorado's seen even double-digit growth in the manufacturing sector in the last 2 years. So it's a good place to be. Colorado, if I'm being completely honest, is not a manufacturing hub. That was smart. I was staying in Chicago when I was there. But I think there's growth opportunities here, and I can get into companies here. There's a handful of me in, not me specifically, because no one's really focusing, has this niche in the supply chain advisory side, but it would have been a tough market, a bigger market. But Colorado, like I said, there's opportunity in the state of Colorado. You would know probably better statistics on where Colorado, or certain cities in Colorado stand on the innovation side. There's just tons and tons of new businesses popping up. I know Galvanize just opened a site in Fort Collins, big business incubator up there. Rocky Mountain Hemisphere is opening up a campus in Denver. It's going crazy right now. So that's part of it. So there's lots of smart people coming out of research institutions. CSU is doing a great job of commercializing technology, smoking both the other 2 research institutions, including the school I went to. So, and I'll say that they were doing a fantastic job. School of mine sucks at commercializing technology. So, but yeah, it's a great environment for on the outside side.
So I have one last question.
You gotta fight Rich for it.
You want to go?
I don't know
Good
what
on Russell.
is it better?
Rochambeau.
Mine's about marketing and biz dev in B2B as a small player. How do you crack that nut?
And I guess that works with mine. And how do you scale it?
Okay, both. So, what was the question? How do you, as a small player, how do you do business-to-business sales, and then how do I scale and grow? So, it's hard. I am not a salesperson. My background is not sales. My background is manufacturing operations and supply and sourcing operations. So, largely what I'm doing is networking, and now I'm doing a speaking tour because, like I said, the more people that are talking about it, the more relevance this topic has, the easier it is for me to get into people. And again, references, leads, stuff like that. All my clients so far have been through references and leads. Cold calling sucks. I mean, anybody that's in here that's done any cold calling, it's miserable. It's complex. You know, I presented it in a relatively simple way, but to get a 30-second pitch into first person that answers the phone is near impossible to get them to understand. It's still confusing even to me after doing this for over a decade. So, largely through networking and in terms of scaling, when my customer, I've tried to balance my customer load and push people off, so I don't want to overcommit myself because my reputation is only as good as my name. So if I overcommit and can't deliver, that's a bad thing. But when I get to the point where I'm ready to take on additional customer load that would fulfill a full person, I already have some target people I'm looking to steal away and get to come hang out with me a little bit. So. Oh no, not yours. The person I'm targeting for coaching doesn't work for any company around here, so we're good. He lives in Chicago. I'm gonna make sure that I can tell him to move in this direction. So. All right.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Great.
Thank you.
If you need a quick refill on coffee, grab it because we're gonna have Michael get set up and ready to go. So you got a 2-minute break. We're gonna do a short one today.
We'll see what he has to say. If I don't wind up getting called in for hearing, I'll let you know.
But,
Are we talking David Champlin?
David Westman. Dave Westman.
All right, 1 minute more